Hey, this is Rustin with Metalholic magazine, and with me, the legendary Dave Meniketti from Y&T. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Nice to be here.
So where you got? You guys are in the Midwest this week, right?
That's correct. We're out here slugging away, playing for the Midwestern fans.
Now, the first time I ever saw you was when you played at my high school in Concord, California, Ignacio Valley High. I even got a guitar pick floating around here somewhere.
That was actually a pretty special event for that high school, because I remember playing. We played, I think, twice, and I think once with Journey or something, if I'm not mistaken. And that's a pretty big deal for a high school to have these kind of bands, playing at their place.
Hey, well, and the last time I saw you was on your farewell tour when you played at the Omni.
That would have been about 91, something like that, yeah.
Somewhere in that, yeah. Our age is showing. Anyway, so it's good to get a chance to talk with you again, and I want to talk about the new record, Facemelter. But before we get to that, you guys did Donington. I refuse to call it Download. How did that go for you this year?
That was really good, actually. That ended up being one of the better festivals that we played here. It's a bit crazy, having 5 stages and hundreds of bands in a couple of days. But at the end of the day, we played at a good time slot. We had a packed audience in the tent that we played, and it was good. It was a very good show.
That's all you can ask for. How's the U.S. tour going so far?
U.S. tour has been going fine. We started out in the Northwest and played for some fans that hadn't seen us in 20-something years, because we haven't been to the Northwest since literally the mid-'80s. And that's the way it's going to be for a lot of people on this tour, as a matter of fact, because this is our first foray out into places we've not been in a long time, going out in the tour bus and trying to take the music to people.
35 years now. You guys started in 1974, 75, if memory serves. Does it seem that long? And how do you feel knowing that after all this time your music still resonates and the fans still respond? Well,
of course, it feels great. It feels great that the fans are still there. That's the whole reason we can tour 50 to 70 shows a year, and make a living at this, is because they are there and they keep showing up and they keep wanting to hear us, and it feels great. And as far as knowing, how it feels after so many years, I think it's just human nature that when you're in the middle of something and you just keep working at it, time flies. And though, 35, 37 years, whatever, that seems like a hell of a long time. And if I listen, if I think back in, 1974 and think about what I was doing then and how it was playing gigs, sure, it seems like a long time ago. But in the whole scope of things, it's really just been, you take a day at a time, and it just seems like it just flies by, and it's no big deal.
Well, I would imagine being able to get up there on stage at this point in your life, your career and everything is sort of like the fountain of youth for you.
Yeah, well, I suppose so. And I certainly feel that way, and we all do when we're on stage. So, it's the eternal going for playing and doing something that you really love that I think keeps you young.
In my book, Y&T has always been the most unheralded and under-the-radar band in rock. Have you felt that way, too, over the years? Because I know it's been frustrating for me as a fan. Has it been frustrating for you as well?
Sure, it's been frustrating, yeah. And, we've been through time periods when we were, living on frustration, literally, month after month, seeing our record companies fail us and other things, crumbling along the wayside when they should have been working for us. And, we got into that for a while, but then, we just finally got to the point where it was like, we can't look back. What happened, and it's happened to plenty of other people, too, that have had, bad breaks, but we've had more than our share. But, I think those days, have happened, they're behind us, and the good thing is that the last 5 to 10 years of us being back out here and doing it, and really sort of making strides forward every year as far as, touring Europe and Japan and certain places in the U.S., has just made us, forget about all that, and you just have to go, okay, well, that was the past, that was what we went through, that's part of our history, but what's happening now is all that we focus on.
Well, let's talk about the present then and what's going on now, because been 13 years between records since Endangered Species, and I know grunge almost single-handedly obliterated classic hard rock there for a while, but how did you know now was the time to put out new Y&T music, and how did that come about?
Well, basically, as you were saying, grunge had pretty much obliterated classic rock in the 90s. The 90s were a bad time for anybody that played in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Quite frankly, they were saying it was only 80s bands that were affected, but it wasn't. It was pretty much everybody. And, which is a stupid thing, really, when you think about it. When some new style of rock music comes in, okay, let's get rid of everything that came before it. That's stupid. I mean, so many styles of music can live simultaneously, as they do now again. But that was what was happening while we weren't releasing anything in the 90s. I mean, we did come up with a couple of independent records in the mid-90s, but, they pretty much, stayed fairly small in scale, and we didn't really do much touring off of it. So, we were just kind of hanging and waiting for the moment when hopefully something would sort of come around again. And about 2003, we started touring again, more significantly, and really started stepping it up the last 5 years. And once we, had established, okay, we're back, we're playing Europe again, we're doing all the stuff that we used to do as a band in the 80s and 70s, then it was like, okay, we were just satisfied at first to just be playing on our old material. But at some point, it just became obviously clear to all of us that, look, we're a band that's 100% back and in it again, and it's time for us to get creative again as this band, because, it just doesn't feel right only living off of your old stuff. You got to come up with new stuff. You got to feel vital again, and that's the way to do it. And
right.
And plus the fact that we've got a band of 4 members that have been the same members, going at it for 50 plus dates a year the last 4 plus years in a row. And it's like, the fans are asking, the press is asking, we're asking ourselves, shouldn't we be creating something with this new, band? Absolutely. So in basically 2008, we decided, all right, let's do it. Let's go in. And we carved out some time at the beginning of 2009, January and February, and then we got busy touring again, and then we did the same thing this year. We said, all right, let's not only carve out time to finish writing, but recording it, being done with it. So we took the first 4 months of the year and just went for it and finished it up.
Nice segue, Dave. Taking me into my next question here, because it's been a while and everything. Number one, how did it feel to record with John and Mike? I think John actually did some studio work for you guys back on Down for the Count in '85. That's
correct. Actually, he did. He was singing background vocals with us for I think a couple of records, both Down for the Count and it may have been Contagious or some other record. I can't remember exactly, but and he was going out on the road with us, helping us out in the mid-'80s. He went on tour with us when when Y&T and Motley Crue were on tour together, and Y&T and Aerosmith, all around '85 and so on and so forth. So he's been a part of the band silently and in as much as, he loves the band and has been inspired by the band since literally the very beginning of the band. I mean, he was a friend of John, of Leonard, our original drummer, and went to high school with him and the whole thing. So he's been one of the guys on the sidelines that finally got his calling and got in the band in 2003. And it felt completely natural to be doing this record with him, and it was great for me too, because I got to see my buddy, who should always have kind of been in the band in a way, finally get his due and be on a record 100% himself. And it was real easy playing with Mike. Mike was great in the studio, and it was just real natural, because this band had been playing for over 4 years together, and we all know each other and where we're going with every little lick and every little step. So it was perfect. And plus, we recorded the record in my studio, which is the same place that we rehearse. So it was very comfortable. It wasn't like, okay, we're in this different surrounding and we got to get in this different state of mind. It was just like, hey, just like the regular days of rehearsing, hey, let's just put the tracks down. So it was a real natural event.
Facemelter truly has that feel of your 80s sound. Was it your intent to recreate that vibe, or did the songs just sort of simply pick up where you guys left off?
Yeah, I think it was more the latter. We didn't have a clear goal set ahead of us, like, okay, now let's write just this kind of song or whatever. I mean, we knew that just from the standpoint of we've been touring so much the last 5 years that, you know, we were just inspired by the fans, and we knew that, you know, straight ahead rock was just going to come out of us, you know. It just made sense. And, you know, we wrote with, I think, realistically, you know, all those last couple of years of touring sort of inspiring us. And, you know, what are we doing while we're touring? We're playing our classic rock material that we always have played, you know, the classic Y&T material. And it just kind of just went all perfectly together. There was no preconception. We just wrote whatever felt good at the time, and that's what came out. And I think, like I said, it was mostly inspired by the fact of what we've been doing ourselves the last 5 years, and the fact that we're in, you know, we're in a positive, you know, state of mind that things are going forward for us in our careers. So, yeah, but it was no, you know, preconception like, oh, we need another Black Tiger, you know, or we need another Earthshaker or Mean Streak record or another this song or that. Never really crossed our minds, because when we write, we just kind of blank slate. Here we go, you know. Let's see what we come up with, and that's how. And luckily, I think we did the right thing this time around.
Talk about some of the songs on the album. I know they're all sort of like your children, but do any specifically stand out for you, have special meaning on Facemelter?
Well, you know, there are some, you know, that individually maybe we can all say different things. You know, they all are our children, just like you say, and as it was very hard for us to figure out what was going to make the record, what was going to be a bonus track, and all that kind of stuff, because of the fact that we thought they were all legitimate 100%, you know, contenders without any fill. And, you know, but at the same time, you know, if I were reflecting back on the things I was feeling as we were writing things, and as I was writing certain songs by myself or whatever, you know, I'm Coming Home was a pretty important song for me. It meant a lot of things to me personally, and for the band as well. And so that was certainly one that stands out in my mind as something that was written with a lot of emotional content sort of behind it, and for different reasons. Not only, you know, because of touring, but because of what home means to all of us. Whether it means a home away from home, or the way that the fans make us feel, or just, you know, things in our lives that happen that make it ever so important to be at home at that time. So, you know, that was certainly one of the big songs, you know, that stand out in my mind as important songs for me on this record. Outside of that, there's so many. I mean, you know, I love each song for its own thing, you know, that it does. You know, Shine On for the fact that it's such a cool rhythm and riff and great easy, you know, melody to sing along with. On with the Show and Blind Patriot, because they just kick ass. And, you know, that's one of those sides of us that we love, and we're fortunate enough as a band to be is a band that has a couple sides to us that the fans love, all those sides. The melodic ballads that we put out, and passionate ballads, and the straight ahead, you know, hard rock and stuff. So, you know, there's so many things. Yeah.
That leads me to my next question. How do you guys even put a set list together these days with such a catalog of great music?
Very difficult. Lot of going back and forth and you know, saying, but I think it should be this because, and I think it should be that because, you know, but there's a little bit of a science to it as well, which is that I always have with us on my laptop every set that we've played for the last, 10 years. And so whenever we go to a place that we've played before, we just simply look back and go, okay, if we played there last year, what did we play? Okay, well, let's not play the same set. Let's make sure, you know, that we try to mix it up. But outside of that, just creating a set period is just difficult as hell. We know we got to put in certain, you know, classic Y&T songs that everybody's going to want to hear every night, and then that sort of leaves maybe another third to a half of the set open for all these other songs that we're dying to put in there. and depending on where we are, we'll try to, find out if a certain region, a certain song was more popular or something, and we'll put that in. But now that we got this new record, oh my God. We want to play everything, new off the record, but we know that we can't do that. We'll bore the hell out of some people that don't know about the record. So, we're doing our best to kind of still stick with the basic plan of playing, the popular stuff plus, some sort of record tracks that people would all like to hear, and that we would like to play. And now we want to put 3 to 5 new songs in every set, because we play a good 2 hours plus every night, so we have the ability to do that and still play plenty of material.
Well, I mean, it's impressive as hell, the fact that you just can look back and say, hey, this is what we did before. What can we do to make it different for them this time to really, that's really showing the same sort of dedication to your fans that they show to you. Yeah, indeed. And that they're going to appreciate that, and certainly not everybody that came last year is going to be the same people that come this year, but there's a lot of, Y&T fans that are so dedicated that you can bet if you're coming back to a same area, there's going to be a lot of repeat customers. So, you want to try to give them, a different show. And, it means a lot to them, means a lot to us as well. Because the fans are so dedicated to us, it means, that we've got to be the same for them, you're right, absolutely. What goes around comes around. Is it true you were once asked by Ozzy to take over guitar duties between Randy Rhoads and Jakey Lee? Yes. We were on tour with AC/DC at the time, and we were hitting our last UK date on the UK tour, which was in Dublin, Ireland, and Ozzy Osbourne was there at the concert. There were a few other famous blokes that were there. And after the show, at our set, Ozzy came straight backstage before AC/DC came on with Sharon. And he dropped to his knees in front of me and said, "Will you please join my band?" And it was kind of embarrassing because the rest of the guys were standing right next to me, literally, or, in the dressing room at least, within a couple of feet away. And that was the beginning and end of that very quickly, because I just, I said, hey, I respect that you asked me, and I thank you very much, but no, I'm not interested. And not because I don't like Ozzy. I think he's a great guy, and I love his music, but it didn't make sense for us at that time, or for me, because the band was just really starting to get a name for itself and starting to kick butt overseas and in places in the States. And, I would much rather be doing my own thing than trying to fill somebody else's shoes in somebody else's band. And it just, I didn't even have to think a second about it. It was an immediate answer straight back. Well, at the time, that would have meant pushing your good friend Brad Gillis from Night Ranger out of the band. Indeed, yeah. And, and Ozzy talked to me about Brad, and, he respected him and thought he was a great player and everything, but at the same time, it wasn't what he wanted for the band. He felt that Brad was, not rock enough for him, quite frankly. He goes, I had to tell him how to dress, and I had to grab him and move him all over the stage because he just wanted to stay still. And it's like, you're just moving all over the place and moving your head and crazy and you're nuts and blah, blah, blah. And that's what I want, Yeah, obviously, he wanted the energetic, crazy rocker kind of vibe. And, and Brad was more the kind of guy that likes to, stand still and get into it and do his thing. And, I heard the stuff that he was doing with Ozzy. I thought he was great. I thought it was a good vibe, but he wanted something different, and Ozzy's the only person that knows what Ozzy wants. So, I just leave it at that and go, hey, well, whatever, buddy. And then as it turned out, the next year we ended up doing a whole European tour with Ozzy and Y&T together with Jakey Lee, and it was just kind of funny how coincidence was there. It's been over 20 years, so I think it's safe to ask, but if not, you could let me know. What's the real story on Joey and Nardo leaving the band? Well, the real story is real simple. It was because they both messed up. Quite frankly, they had problems in their lives, and, it was all based off of drug problems at the time. And, of course, as everybody knows, it's no shock to anyone that the 80s was a bad time for drugs and cocaine and all kinds of stuff, and it got the better of them, the both of them. And unfortunately, it was something that
they were not willing to fess up to and change. And we couldn't go on that way because it had affected the band, it affected the playing, it affected everything. And so we knew that if the Y&T was going to survive and keep going, we had to make a change and we had to move on. And it's, if you'd asked me the same question 10 years ago, I wouldn't have told you anything. Because, I don't like to bring people's personal lives out to the public, but this is all old news now. It's the stuff that happened 20-something years ago, and Leonard was the first person to say to me, once he learned his lesson afterwards, he said, I would have kicked myself out too if I were you guys, because he knew what kind of shape he was in at that time, and it was not a good deal. So, that was it.
Leonard's always been a character. So
yes,
how did you and Phil avoid the pitfalls of the 80s then?
Well, it's never easy. First of all, Phil and I got the brunt of that because, we weren't going to tell anybody anything. We were just going to say personal, differences or musical differences, because we like to take the high road and we don't like to, bring anybody down. And for that, we knew we were also going to get a lot of people that are going to speculate and think, oh, it's probably Phil and Dave just wanted more money or this or that or whatever. And you know what? We just sit there and took it because, I would rather do that than drag, my fellow band members into the mud, regardless of whether they screwed up or not, and made our life, miserable for a while there. And, but like I said, that's the only reason I won't even tell you about it now is it's so old and it's so, everybody knows already for the most part, or if they don't know, it's no big shock. But, it was tough. It was very tough. We had to keep going. People thought that we replaced Leonard because we wanted a better-looking guy in the band. That wasn't true. That was just such crap. The fact that Jimmy was the best drummer of the 33 guys that we auditioned, of the 300 that sent tapes in, was only coincidental that he happened to be decent-looking at the same time. He was just the best guy for the gig at the time of all the guys that we had auditioned. He played the parts that Leonard played, which are not easy to do, better than anybody, because he had an amazing amount of chops. The problem with getting somebody to play Leonard's parts is that, there's a lot of straight-ahead stuff, but, oh, my God, then all of a sudden you say, we want you to do Barroom Boogie. Now we want you to do Forever. Now we want you to do, I could mention 10 popular songs where if you're not thinking about it as a drummer, man, they're hard to play. And maybe, as a drummer, you could play 50% of those songs in your style. The other 50% are not even close to what you ever played in your style of drumming. So all of a sudden, it's a difficult job now to be a drummer for Y&T. So it wasn't an easy shoes to fill by any means.
No.
So it was
much like people always sort of overlook your guitar playing, which is you're right up there with all the great guitar influence icons, if you will. Nardo's drumming was always sort of under the radar too, and he was just a beast. So. Absolutely,
yeah, and if he could have kept his shit together at that time, I mean, who knows what would have gone even further with him. But I got to tell you, we play with, our friends with, or whatever, or finally meet people that we've admired for years, all the time as we play these festivals, we go out and tour together. We know most of these guys one way or another, and almost to a man, there's not a drummer in any of these bands that didn't absolutely admire or worship Leonard as a drummer. Either as they were starting their careers or, while they were simultaneously playing while we were. So, there's no question the guy made an influence and an impact.
Absolutely, and as you have on guitar. Dave, I know you got to get out of here, so I'll ask you one last question. If we were to create a rock and roll time capsule and you had to throw in one song that sort of defines who Y&T is, which song would that be?
I would say Forever, and because it's got the most of everything that I think Y&T does really well, which was it's got the straight ahead energy, it's got the very passionate melody, and that's kind of the two things, or the three things I should say: the passion, the melody, and the energy and kick-ass, straight-ahead approach that we have, plus the fact that Phil is a great lyricist and has come up with a lot of lyrics in the band, and that was certainly one of his better lyrics as well.
I can't argue with that at all. You got a message that you'd like to send out to the fans?
Well, yeah, I mean, the first thing and the most important thing is that the reason Y&T keeps playing every year, year after year, is because our fans are so dedicated to us and so passionate that it keeps the fire going with us. And that's the most important thing. And realistically, you know, when we play for a Y&T audience, it's like we're at home, no matter where we are in the world, and that's what makes it special for us. There's no question that these fans are just as dedicated and passionate as we are when we play on stage, and that's what means everything about live performance.
Dave, thanks so much for taking the time, and we look forward to seeing you out on the road.
All right, cheers. Same to you. Bye-bye.